Hi, Steph. I'm excited you're here today. It's been a month since we spoke.
I know it's been so long. That was the fastest month ever, though.
I know it seems like I could have sworn that 2021 just started.
And we're here we are. It's coming to an
And
end.
yet here we are to the end. It's crazy. Okay, so I feel like I know that you're an expert in this field, but I'm just saying, I feel like when it comes to diet culture, I may be an expert.
You're an expert in diet culture. Oh,
I
perfect.
am the expert of trial and error.
Oh, I can't wait to hear all your thoughts about it.
Oh my
What diets have you
goodness.
tried?
Oh gosh. Well, I was vegan for 4 years, and I have to admit, I was the healthiest I ever been because I was feeding my children that stuff. So I wanted to make sure I had everything in it.
Yeah. So did you
That's
do the
hard to
same?
maintain though.
It is because I did that too. I was like you. I did every diet in the book, like in college. While I was studying my as a dietitian, I tried diets, and it's just crazy because they don't work. But I was vegan for a little bit. I did feel so good, but I love cheese
So good.
so much.
See, I'm cheese, I can take it or leave it. Dairy as well, except for in my coffee. But I got really good. I switched to tea at that time and everything. But it's like I said, there's a lot of prep work involved. And as my family grew and I had my second child, I was like, I can't keep up with this, especially when grandparents are saying, "Here, have a hot dog." So
Right. It's so hard to, yeah, adjust and be flexible with that vegan lifestyle. So I
no.
started that, and then I just realized, you know what, just incorporate more fruits and vegetables to my diet and I'll be okay. I can still have cheese. I can
Yes,
still
but
have,
all
yeah,
of us are all or nothing, Steph. We're all or nothing.
that's the biggest problem. And that's why diet companies and diet culture, they're so successful because people are all or nothing. Because if they're all motivated at first, they're doing so well. And of course, life happens. So then there's a trigger and then they mess up and they're like, oh crap. So I have to start over the next day. And they just keep buying into these diet companies. So that's why they're so
And
successful.
I've gone from that to doing keto, which was not as successful, that's for sure. I haven't tried intermittent fasting because I like to eat. So that's a problem.
And I do
I
not
think I
recommend.
did Weight Watchers. I've done all of them. I like, you name it, I've done them all. But and also I was a personal trainer at one point in my life for a good 15 years. And I for the most part I used to really eat very balanced. That was important to me. I don't know where, and I think this is where it's an interesting conversation because aside from the fact it is really having an understanding of what nutrients are best for you.
Mhm.
And I do think because of the culture that we have now where everything's fast food, whether it be going to the drive through or in the supermarket.
Right.
So it's knowing but it's also the mentality,
It
because
is.
Lord, I'm a lot fluffier than I was 10 years ago.
Yeah, and like life right now, everything's at such a fast pace. And for example, like this past year, life was on a pause. Everybody was just at home, stuck at home. So of course, what do? You're in your kitchen and you're bored, so you start eating. So it's just crazy how, yeah, your lifestyle just has such an impact on your eating behaviors, and you just have to learn how to be flexible and adjustable to that. So that's why, as a dietitian, I love teaching people those skills because for example, when you're on a diet, it's really hard to adjust to life sometimes. So that's why I'm all
Mm-hmm.
about balance and everything in moderation.
So, yeah, and that is the one huge takeaway that I have taken from any of your postings on social media, which, by the way, listeners, if you have not caught her on social media, so much good nuggets of information on there. I feel like what you're looking for is healthy, sustainable changes. That is your big thing. It's not something that is all or nothing. So let's dive into the diet culture first. Let's talk about what are we being fed, so to speak, by media, by everything out there, that maybe might have some misconceptions about.
Yeah, and especially so my biggest platform is on TikTok, and man, that platform there's a lot of diet culture on there, and I see hundreds of posts for an example of like what I eat in a day, and they make these like very I can't say that word, aesthetically pleasing videos where like it's like a small plate with like these perfectly organic fruits and vegetables. And I just see all those types of videos like basically saying
And
like,
they're so pretty.
they're so pretty,
It's
right?
so like I can't.
But and they make it and it is motivating. You're like, man, I want to eat like that. But sometimes they kind of put that picture in your head, like this is what healthy eating is, and this is how to be healthy. And health is so much more than diet and exercise. And so sometimes the media kind of just shows like, in order to be healthy, you have to eat like this and you have to look like this. And that can be so toxic, especially in TikTok, because it's such a young platform. There's so many young girls on there. And that's really where the start of eating disorders kind of come, that young age, because they think, oh, if I don't look like this or I don't eat like this, like I need to punish myself by not eating. And
it's so funny because it is a pendulum on there. There's everything from the extreme of, you have to look like this, and this is, you have to eat this way, you have to exercise to the point of like exhaustion. But I also see a lot of self-acceptance that I didn't see when I was growing up, that I'm like, I freaking love these people.
I love those. And that's, yeah, who I mostly just follow, people who are just happy about their body, the intuitive eaters. I'm all for that, just listen to your body, not worrying about, being appreciative of your body, just feeling your rolls, being proud of what your body can do. And I love that.
I often kid around about the fact that, yeah, sure, I've got, my pooch, and everything, but I'm like, this body created 3 lives, 3 freaking lives.
It's incredible.
Has sustained me for 49 years. I mean, that's not a joke. That's pretty damn good. And why should I disabuse, like sit here and think I should look a certain way or whatever?
Right.
Be a little more healthier than I am. Yes. But
I'll look in the mirror and I'm like, you know what? Thank you for protecting my organs. And like, if we didn't have fat, we would have to eat every 7 minutes to maintain life, which is kind of crazy to think about. So like having that fat storage, we need that. So sometimes we just got to be appreciative of what our body does.
So let's talk a little bit about intuitive dieting, because I've heard this a lot. I've heard a lot of people buzz about this. And in many ways, I like, it's, again, you hear the word dieting and you're like, but really it's more about being intuitive of what is appropriate for you. So what I think that's what I understand it to be.
Yeah. So it's really just having that connection with the body, and having a connection with the body is so important to start to respect and trust the body. So just, you deserve to eat that is physically and mentally nourishing. So really just listening to your body, listening to your hunger and fullness cues. And once you get that, once you start understanding those cues, like you're going to know when like your body needs vegetables, you need to nourish it. But then you're going to have those other days like, man, I need a pizza because it was a stressful day. It's just really understanding and trusting it, and it all balances out. And I just love the whole intuitive eating approach. And I'm still learning. I'm taking courses on it right now because I came as a clinical dietitian. Now I'm starting my own private practice. So I think that's what my approach I'm trying to lean towards. So I have a lot of learning to do, but there's so many TikTokers who do such a good job explaining it.
It's funny. I was talking to my friend Dustin yesterday, and I said, I want to ask her about intuitive eating. And he says, I intuitively know I want a Starbucks right now. And then he says to me, granted, my intuition is telling me that's probably not a good idea. And I'm like, so there's a difference between instinctual and intuitive, I think.
I do that too. I'm like, I think I need, my pumpkin spice latte this morning. But,
I need ice cream for dinner. And I do that sometimes. I need ice cream for dinner. But really, do I?
Right. And so sometimes like that can be your emotions talking to you. So your body might say like, I need ice cream, but ice cream produces serotonin. So that's like that good feeling hormones. So maybe your bodies just needs something that, you had a stressful day, doing something that makes you feel good. So sometimes people cope with it through food, but there's some other ways to cope with it. A lot of people do it with like shopping, or unfortunately it can like lead to drinking or unhealthy habits, but it's really just understanding your body and like what it needs at that moment.
It's very interesting that you mentioned about the serotonin with the ice cream, because I know that when I had eliminated dairy from my life, what my favorite thing about it was the fact that I didn't have as much inflammation, right beside the nose, on the chin, my belly, everything went down. And I don't think I lost a pound or anything, but it was just, I wasn't as inflamed. But I had heard recently that with dairy, there are certain things that give that serotonin, that could potentially give you that little bit of is it the casein?
The casein, yeah, and it
Yeah.
produces like that good feeling, yeah, to your brain. And that's why, like for cheese, some people just love cheese, and for me, that's why it's one of my favorite foods, because it does give you that real good feeling, yeah, signal in your brain.
So when it comes to, and I wonder, understanding that when it comes to dietitians, I understand that for the most part, I would imagine that your scope of expertise has a lot to do with the nutritional value, what is going to be appropriate for that person, and making sure that they're eating healthfully. But I would imagine the psychology of it all really is an important factor. How much is that a part of your practice?
It's honestly like 50%, which is crazy because, like I said, just starting my private practice, it's a lot of counseling. So going from a clinical dietitian, I would go in patients' rooms and basically be like, hey, you need to eat this because you have this disease. This is going to help. Whereas right now, I'm working with a lot of patients for like weight loss and just like sustainable lifestyle changes. So that's all about counseling and motivational interviewing. And it is all psychological and really trying to understand what is in somebody's brain and how we can tweak it and how we can make small changes, because you can't just tell somebody to be like, all right, eat whole grains, eat your protein, vegetables, boom, problem solved, because it's so different from person to person.
I don't know. I know a lot of guys that can do that.
Yeah, right.
And they probably could use counseling, but they can just turn it off and they're like, okay, I'm only going to eat this.
Yeah.
But I do think women tend to be a little bit more emotional eaters. I'm not saying that exclusively, and men aren't. I do think men have that as well. But I do find that a lot of men in my life are able to flip that switch really easily.
Right.
So what do you recommend to your clients because again, I sit there and I think there's a duality sometimes when I think about when it comes to if you have to lose some weight because of health concerns. Not saying that, like I said, we always say you can be healthy regardless of what size, but health concerns. I have a friend that has a heart condition and she needs to lose a few pounds, whatever. I'm curious. I imagine it's two different pieces. There are the psychological, but when it comes to dietary, it's not as instinctual as you would think, because I think a lot of people in today's culture are fast food addicts. Like a lot of us haven't even learned how to cook or how to prepare fresh foods. Like fresh foods are expensive, but I think it's because it goes bad so quickly because we're not using it.
Right. And that's and that's where my dietitian part comes in. And during my practice, like I do go over cooking tips and how to the basic, how to cook. But then there's also, I know fruits and vegetables can be expensive or it takes a lot of time to prepare. But then there's also you can do frozen fruits and vegetables because they're just as nutritious as fresh or canned. And especially now in the stores, there's so many healthy convenience foods because everybody's just so, busy. But with your question, sorry, what was your question again? I felt like
I think that when it comes to someone that's coming in looking for help in order to change their habits and everything, do you find that you have to like almost retrain them in how they think about food? Because like I said, processed food do you know how many times I've been told that like some of the processed food that's out there, they're like, oh, but it's so healthy for me. And you're like, oh, it's not. No, it's not.
Right. And then that's why I love questioning my clients, like what makes it not healthy? And like I like to see what they're thinking in their mind, like what makes something not healthy. And they'll be like, oh, well, it has carbs. I'm like, well, why are carbs unhealthy? And they're like, well, because, pizza, cake, bread. And then that's when I keep asking questions. Well, why are those unhealthy? And they say, well, because it has sugar, saturated fats. And then I say, well, yes, those might be the unhealthy parts of that food, but what about carbs? Why are carbs bad? They're a primary source of fuel. So I like to just kind of pick on their brains, and then they are like, oh, you know what? You're right. And even before like any client session I have, my biggest question I always ask them is, please like define health. Like, what does health mean to you? And that's where they kind of get stumped. They're like, huh, They sometimes say like, I don't know, being fit or just feeling good. And I kind of let them dig a little deeper. I'm like, well, why do you want to feel good? And for example, for a mother, they say, well, I want to be able to be energetic to help my kids and play with them. And so we find that really deep meaning of health. And so when we're in the follow-up sessions and when they're starting to kind of give up and be like, I can't do this, we kind of go back to that first point and say, as our motivator, like, well, this is, you want to be up and helping your kids. So this is why we're going to eat more carbs. And so I love just to find like what somebody's definition of health is and really find that true motivator.
So what's your definition of health?
Ooh, that's a great question. Yeah. So,
I mean, it could be personal or in general.
Yeah. So that's a really good question. So nutrition is just one area of health. I feel like health is just a whole combination, whether it's nutrition, physical, it's also that emotional aspect, respecting yourself, doing self-care, your environment, making sure you're surrounded and having a good, healthy relationship with your family, your friends, and then just having fun, treating yourself right, and just putting those components together. That's really health. It's not all about nutrition and diet, but it's just your mental and physical health.
It's very interesting because I do find a lot of people are interested, or there's been a movement, at least since 2020, and a lot of people were at home for self-care, right? The people are doing, masks on their face or hair mask, or they're, doing little things to make themselves feel good and take care of themselves. But when it comes to food and exercise, there's almost like this thing in our brains that make us think, well, that's work. That's
Right.
hard, as opposed to, throwing a mask on your face or whatever, or doing those kinds of things for yourself. I mean, I sometimes think there's got to be a way of presenting. We should start a movement, Steph.
We should. Oh my gosh.
A self-care. I'm telling you, because in all honesty, it's like, I do find that there's a disconnect. Maybe it's because food is a comfort, I guess.
It is a comfort. And yeah, there's work with food when it comes to preparation, like self-care, you're in your bathroom doing your mask, like everything's fun. But like when it comes to food and nutrition, or food and fitness, like you have to work for it, which it makes it tough. And that's why people have a hard time with it. So you got to put in work and really be mindful with that.
So I saw on one of your TikToks, you were talking about 4 staples that you have,
Yeah.
That's okay. I was going to say, let's talk about them. What would you say are the 4 staple foods that you think everybody should have?
Well, yeah. So, I have so many different, it depends.
It could be more than 4. It could be, but what do you think are some basic things that people should have in their arsenal to be including into their diet every day?
Yeah. So I always make sure I have frozen vegetables because like I said, frozen is just as nutritious as fresh because when they get the produce, they basically freeze it at its peak. So it really retains all the vitamins and minerals. So I love frozen. It's cheaper and it's so much more convenient. So those days I don't feel like cooking, I just whip out my frozen vegetables, which I had for breakfast this morning with rice and eggs. So I always have some type of frozen veggie. And then for protein, I always have eggs because they're just so easy. You can,
and cheap too.
So cheap too. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So frozen veggies, eggs. And then I always have for a healthy fat. I don't know if you've ever heard of hemp seeds. Those are my favorite.
Really?
Yeah. So you can get it actually, I think any store, but really you just sprinkle it on. You can do it on your smoothies, salads, soups, pasta. It has this really creamy taste, but it's full of omega-3s and 6. I think it's like 2 tablespoons per serving. But if you don't know how to incorporate more healthy fats into your diet, that's always my go-to. And I just sprinkle it on there because healthy fats make you feel full longer. And it really satisfies your body. So that's a really good staple to have.
So we're used to adding fat into our diet, period. So when you see it there and here, it's good to add healthy fats into your diet. Is there any healthy fats that you can use in replacement for some of the unhealthy fats when you're cooking?
Oh, yeah. So of course, you know
what I'm saying? Otherwise you feel like you're throwing fats on top of fats. You're not giving up the unhealthy ones just yet. You have to cook with that.
Exactly. So yeah, there's basically good fats, bad fats. I hate using the word bad fats, but that's what diet culture says. And those are called our saturated fats. So those saturated fats are the ones that end up, clogging your arteries, and that can lead to heart disease. So those fats are like your butter, a lot of like meat products or processed foods. And then you have the unhealthy fats like your olive oils, your salmon, nuts, seeds. Those are the good fats. So for an example, if you're cooking with butter, maybe you can replace that with olive oil, because butter is kind of the bad fat, olive oil is a good fat. So that's a really good replacement. But just adding it into your diet, and that's really my biggest message in my whole brand and TikTok, is really not taking foods out of your diet, but adding it into your diet. So, because I just hate that mindset of restriction. So
I feel the same way. I actually used to always say to my friends, like, one of the best things you could do is just add something in. The other stuff falls away eventually. But, if you just keep adding something new each week, that's good. Like,
exactly. And like for an example, yeah, I like that.
Because I drink my water filtered through a Keurig. So, and I'm trying to drink more water, but it's hard sometimes.
It's funny because I'm not a big water fan, and I'm forced myself to drink it. So I do like flavored water. I add like Mio to it. And a little fun fact, and I saw you do you have a straw in your water?
Yes, I do. It's a Yeti.
Yeah. So that helps you.
It makes it faster.
That too. Yeah. And you're more prone to drink more water with the straw in it, like just sitting, sipping on it. So that's always my tip I give to clients. Always have a straw in your water because you'll drink more water.
Oh, that's interesting. I never even thought of it that way, though. I have to admit, if I have a straw in anything, I tend to drink it faster. So
exactly.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So if we were talking to someone that, like I said, there you have a lot of TikTok's such an interesting place. And I think that there is a vast range of people that are looking for help, but especially young men and women that are either still in a household where somebody else is in control of the food in the house, but also even when you're first getting out on your own and you're just getting stuff for yourself, trying to think of what first steps, because I was that chubby kid when I was younger. I was that kid that didn't know what to do and how to change things. And especially if you can only afford a certain amount, or you're basically, this is what's in front of you. So what things can they do consciously to best keep their health as good as possible? And then potentially be able to shed some weight that they feel uncomfortable with.
Yeah. So that's a really good question. First part I would always say is definitely communicate with the people around you. So like for a young adult or a teenager living with their parents, and the parents are in control of their food, talk to your parents and let them know, like, hey, I really think we need to start making changes into our diet because I don't feel my best and I want to become healthier. And just your parents are going to say no, be like, no, we're going to still eat our mac and cheese. But I think once you get everybody on the same page and just being expressive, that's very important because your environment has a huge impact on your lifestyle.
Right. So, and sometimes it's really hard for parents because I was raised with 10 brothers and sisters. So my parents would buy things in bulk. We always had a couple of spaghetti nights. That was a cheap dinner and it was a big pot. But I mean, you sometimes got to think, okay, maybe it's about the kids doing some research about certain foods that are affordable and can be incorporated into the family.
And and it is affordable. And that's where you really have to do your research and understand nutrition. And that's why my job exists. And so, excuse me. So really just making sure, like, when you're thinking of building a meal, it does not have to be these expensive organic foods. You just got to know that you need 3 components on your plate. There needs to be some type of vegetable. And like I said, you can do frozen vegetables. Those are so cheap, $2. There needs to be some type of carb in there. And I always recommend whole grains, but grains are actually one of the cheapest foods you can get, even like bread, rice, pasta, so affordable.
See, I'm terrible. I will sometimes sit there and I'll be like, oh yeah, we have a potato. Potato, that's vegetable.
It is though. It's a starchy vegetable, and potatoes get such a bad reputation. They're so nutritious.
But really, that's a carb though. That's not really a vegetable.
But it has a lot of health benefits like other vegetables have. It is a starchy carb, and it actually provides more energy than other vegetables. So carbs, again, just get such a bad reputation when they are one of the best nutrients you can put in your body. And that's why I will fight carbs until I die. I
Right.
love them.
I know, I do too. And it makes me happy to see that there's a little bit more of a balance. I understand the point of having high protein in some regards. But in the same breath, I do feel like carbs really got a bad rap somewhere in all this.
They do. And so I know why they did. I don't want to get too sciencey on you right now, but carbs get a bad reputation because usually they're just paired with other ingredients that might not be so good for you. And everybody thinks carbs are like your, pizza and desserts, but carbs are also fruits. They're also yogurts. Milk-based products are carbohydrates. So I think people's mindset on carbs are just associated to just your desserts and processed foods, but there's so many healthy foods out there that are carbohydrates. And of course, just pairing a carbohydrate with the protein, that's such a good way to balance your meal because protein is what's going to help you stay full, but the carbohydrates really fuel your body and give your body that energy. So there's nothing wrong with carbs. And I just love them.
So we talked a little bit about carbs, but let's talk about protein because obviously there's different kinds. There's legumes, there's beans, but there's also the meats, whether it be chicken, pork, or beef. And so we talked a little bit about carbohydrates and not carbohydrates, I'm sorry, cholesterol and really being careful of the kind of saturated fat that they could have. Mm-hmm. What would be your recommendation on how often you should be eating those? Because eggs, I've always felt like were kind of a free for all in all honesty.
Yeah. So that's a great question. So just touching base on eggs really fast. So eggs, a lot of people think that increases your blood cholesterol because it's full of cholesterol, but there's so much research out there showing that actually dietary cholesterol does not increase blood cholesterol. So you can eat your eggs, your cholesterol won't rise, but what raises your cholesterol is your saturated fats.
So what you cook in it, don't cook it in butter.
Yeah, so maybe just olive oil instead of the butter.
So good at butter.
But butter does taste good. And I do that all again in moderation, but I usually do olive oil. But yeah, so with red meat, the recommendation is probably no more than about once a week. I know that's hard today. Everybody eats burgers and a lot of red meat, but that really is the recommendation, and trying to substitute it with some type of plant protein. So like you got your legumes, seeds, edamame, tofu, because those don't really have the saturated fats, but they have more health benefits like the fiber, so much more vitamins and minerals. So really just trying to swap it is really a good advice. Yeah. To bring down that cholesterol.
It's so funny because I was about to say, oh yeah, we're not big red meat eaters. And then I was like, oh, we made a roast on Monday and we're still eating it. Maybe not. And then we're like, oh, what should we be like? Because we tend to make two big meals like during the week. And then we like take it and we kind of mess with it and doctor it, add a different type of vegetable, different whatever. It just makes life easier. Working mom, single mom, sometimes that's what you got to do. Yeah. But we're talking about the next one. We're like, ooh, chili. I'm like going back to meat again,
I know. And I feel like we always rely on meat, and that's like our main source of our food. And kind of
I will say this, when I was weight training, if I wasn't getting enough protein, my muscles hurt so freaking bad. And then when I was eating like a substantial amount of protein, I didn't have that DOMS as much.
Oh yeah, because protein provides nutrients for your muscles to maintain their strength and function. So it's always good to replenish, especially after workout, with protein. I always say carbs before a workout and then protein after a workout for sure.
All right. So what do you think? Going into that with the proteins, all right. So we discussed the eggs and the meats and everything like that and the legumes, but what about the infamous protein shakes?
Yeah. So there's nothing, I like a good protein shake. I use the collagen powder as well. I actually put that in my coffee. And those are great, especially if you can't meet your protein intake through food. I will say that your body can only take about 30 grams of protein at once. And then the rest of the
Oh.
protein, your body actually just pees it out. So it's really good to space out your protein throughout the day rather than say like for breakfast, lunch, you really didn't eat that much protein. So at dinner, you're like, all right, I'm going to have some chicken, a protein shake. That's not really a good idea because your body's only going to take 30 grams of that and then just discard the rest. So,
Or just be constipated.
or you might be, exactly. So, yeah, I like a protein shake if you're not getting enough protein for that meal or for a day, because that's a really easy way to get in some protein. But I don't recommend the ones that provide like 60 grams of protein per serving because that's just a waste of your money when your body only needs 30 grams. So sometimes companies will upcharge because they're going to mess with your minds being like, oh, because we have more protein, it's going to be more expensive. Whereas it's no difference than drinking a protein drink with 30 grams.
So tell me about collagen, because I don't know about collagen being added to your food. I've heard it in your skincare. I've even heard it in hair care, but I've never heard of it being ingested.
Yeah.
What is it doing for you?
So there's very limited research with collagen. And I've been tracking the research because I'm just so intrigued by it too. But I have been taking it for, I don't know, every day. And apparently it is supposed to help with your skin because collagen is in your skin. So we want to provide some nutrients for that. So I've noticed a difference in my skin and I feel like my hair is a little stronger, but that could be like a placebo effect. I have no idea, but yeah, apparently
it sounds interesting.
It is, and there's no flavor to it. So I just put it in my coffee. You can't taste it, and it dissolves in your coffee. I use Vital Proteins. And it's a really, I don't know, great brand.
So what do you think about vitamins and any kind of supplements? Because me personally, I've always been a little bit on the fence about it. It's very funny because I often say that your vitamins and nutrients really should be coming from your food. That preferably consuming it, then going for a vitamin. Though I do know that anything that you already have a surplus of, typically you pee it out. It's not like a big deal. But do you really think vitamins are really truly needed if you have good nutrition?
If you have good nutrition, I don't think it is needed because food will, if you eat a balanced meal or a balanced diet, you will 100% meet your recommendations. However, I will say I'm vitamin D deficient. So, and I eat such a balanced meal, balanced diet, of course, but yeah, I'm deficient in vitamin D. So of course I need supplements for that, which is so interesting. And I think it's because I don't get outside enough and I have darker skin. So I'm not getting that vitamin D.
I've got to take my son, he's 11 years old, and we went for a checkup at the beginning of the summer. And she did blood work and she said he was vitamin D deficient. And she said, it's very funny. She says she's been finding it's almost like an epidemic that so many children were coming in. And she goes, it's almost like consistent. She already knows it before she does the blood work because they have joint pains. They have a lot of different symptoms. And she's like, I bet they're vitamin D deficient. So to find that out was kind of crazy. She goes, oh no. She goes, it's been a huge uptick this past year and a half.
Because everybody's inside. Like,
inside.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And we're in Florida, girl. We have sun.
My That's nuts.
Granted, we're both very, very pale. So we're always afraid to be in the sun. But
that is the number one deficiency in the US is vitamin D. So even if you have a balanced diet, you gotta take supplements for that. So I do think that is very beneficial, but overall, like a multivitamin, if you're eating a balanced diet, you don't need a multivitamin, or really like those water soluble vitamins. I don't really recommend because like you said, you pee it out and you just got to be careful taking fat soluble vitamins like your vitamin D, A, K, E, because you don't pee it out. So if you take too much, that can be kind of toxic to your body. So those always scare me.
Interesting.
Yeah. And a lot, supplements aren't regulated by the FDA. So you also got to be careful what kind you're purchasing, making sure it's approved by a third party. So there's so much when it comes to supplements.
So what would you recommend a person to do before they go and buy a supplement? I mean, I would assume get a blood work, right?
I would get a blood work. I would figure out their diet and see what kind of foods they're eating. and they're having a wide variety of foods, I wouldn't worry, but blood work first or talking to your doctor. I wouldn't go right into the supplements because you never know what's going on in your body.
Which is weird because, we're all given Flintstones and when we're little, and it's just like automatic. You think, okay, that's just something that we do. We take a multivitamin. But like I said, I've been learning more and more that no, that's not always the most intuitive thing to do. You should probably talk to your doctor.
Wow. I forgot about the Flintstone vitamins. I used to take
I know.
them.
Well, I got 11-year-old, so.
Yeah.
But now it's gummy. So it's a lot better.
I love gummies. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I have my own between gummy. I get gummy vitamins for myself, but I never take them because unless I know I'm going through a jag where I'm not eating well, I'm like, I'm going to take them.
That's exactly what I do. Yep.
Yeah. And melatonin, because every once in a blue moon, I need some good sleep.
Me too. I just got my gummy melatonins and they work like a charm. Sometimes
and I always feel like I'm a little kid eating the gummies.
I know. But then you kind of crave them. You're like, it tastes really good. And then you're ending up eating 4 gummies of melatonin and you're out.
No, I'm like, yeah, no, I do think that some of them are really, really good. And, but yeah, I always get a little nervous about how much we're putting in our bodies. Sometimes we're not even thinking about it. And just because it's not potato chips, it doesn't mean that it's good for us. So I often kid around about how we all sit there saying, oh, what am I afraid of, eating this when I do this,
So true. I have so many of those things.
Yeah. Well, I have been thrilled with this conversation because I feel like I learned some stuff, which is really awesome. And I feel like we were able to kind of hopefully guide our listeners to something a little bit, some forward thinking when it comes to eating, intuitive eating. I think we all have to go and Google and research it. Yeah. Follow Steph and
give
look
me
at
a
her
follow.
TikToks.
Yes, and there's so many intuitive eaters on TikTok, and I think Instagram too. That's just a new and upcoming thing. So
I think it's pretty cool. And I think it's important, especially as we're getting into the holidays. Yeah.
Wow, it's coming. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I haven't gotten rid of last year's holiday weight.
I thought you were about to say holiday decorations. I was like, oh
no, I ain't that bad. No, the holiday weight from last year, it's still here. It's lingering.
Last year doesn't count.
Last year's turkey and ham, maybe some Christmas cookies.
But it's about the memories, and that's what you're going to remember. So
yeah, maybe this time I'll make something with some apples and, pumpkin.
Exactly. Add to it. Don't take it away.
Add to it. Don't take it away. Great advice. Well, thank you for coming on today. We'll talk to you soon.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.